Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke. Good evening, Sheriff. You heard my open. What do you think?
Spot on. You hit a home run. Make sure you touch all the bases. One of New York's finest, an NYPD officer, was shot in the line of duty tonight. My thoughts and prayers are with him, the NYPD agency. But over to your opening.
And let me say that we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. But go ahead, Sheriff.
I don't know, Judge, to me, this doesn't pass the smell test. I listened to the charging news conference yesterday, and there was just too much emotion in there. Some of the language used by Ms. Mosby, she talked about she hears the voices. You know yourself as a veteran prosecutor. I've investigated homicides. I've been a part of, the charging conferences, working with the prosecutor. Most prosecutors take their time with it, especially when you're talking about a murder charge. They meticulously go over everything. She came out with this a little fast to me when she's talking about hearing the voices and telling the youth this is your time.
Yeah, this is your moment. This is the movement. Let's be productive. But, Sheriff, there are those who say, in her defense that, well, she knew that there was outrage out there and she knew she was going to file charges, so she just did it. What do you say to that?
There might be something to that. I don't know what she knows. I don't know all the facts of the case. I don't know what happened in the back of that wagon, but you know yourself, you have to block all that out. She's supposed to be dispassionate. She's supposed to be neutral in making this decision. I think she's too emotionally attached. She's new. She should have called in some veteran people to help her out and take her time with this thing and get it right. Murder's a tough charge. It's a higher standard, as you know, and you don't get a second chance to do this right. If she has to amend these charges, people are going to start to wonder. The justice system will get this right. There's no doubt in my mind.
All right. Let me ask you this, Sheriff, and this is an issue that's been bothering me. The Baltimore mayor calling for the police to stand down or give those who wish to destroy space time to do that. Forget about the outrage of that statement. I mean, what law enforcement agency is going to listen to that? No cop that I've ever met in 30 years in law enforcement would say, oh, okay, Mayor, we'll stand down.
It was incredible when I heard that, and somebody in the Baltimore Police Department should have taken the bull by the horns there and done the right thing. Make sure the officers have the proper amount of resources, and that includes the authority to use all reasonable and necessary force to not only defend themselves, but to keep control of the streets.
Absolutely. And what do you say about, you and I have both run for these positions, and when we announce an arrest or an indictment, there really isn't necessarily a call to arms, but you and I both know that she's not going to recuse herself. No one is going to remove her from the case. So how do you think this is all going to end up?
It's ugly right now. I don't want to get into the predicting of it, but she took a crisis situation, and I think she made it worse. I really do.
Well, what about people celebrating in the street? How do you think that makes cops feel?
Sickening. It's warped. There are no winners in this. You know this, Judge. When the Ferguson decision came out, the New York with Eric Garner, you didn't see the cops applauding and having victory parties and high-fiving each other because there are no winners. You know what? You pick up the pieces, you move on, you try to make things better. I thought we saw some of the worst of humankind having a victory party as if some team returned after winning a championship. Just warped as far as I'm concerned.
And the argument that the driver should be charged with depraved murder. I mean, you and I have both seen depraved mind, depraved heart murder. I mean, that would mean that it is so outrageous and so intentional. Well, not intentional, clearly, but almost rises to the level of intent, and that's why the sentences are generally the same for depraved and intentional murder. I mean, have you ever heard of anything like this in your years in law enforcement?
Not in 37 years, and every cop in America, the American police officers, should pay attention to this case. Yeah. I think these officers are being offered up as human sacrifices. I don't know what Ms. Mosby knows. She may know more about this. Right. She will know more about this than I. But in the end, a rules violation rising to a murder charge, It's kind of scary to me.
What I would be interested in seeing, Sheriff, is whether or not she's going to hold those looters and those arsonists and those people who stole from the businesses to hold their feet to the fire, whether she's going to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. You know, in these arguments that the guys who were rioting, they should just be given amnesty, which I heard today on some station, is crazy. What do you think?
I was appalled. I'm surprised that she didn't add that into her news conference. What about the people who assaulted those Baltimore police officers, throwing bricks and pieces of concrete? There were, last I heard, 28 casualties taken on by Baltimore's finest. What about the charges, as you indicated, the looters, the rioters, the people cutting fire hoses? We have a lot of film on that. That can work in our favor, too. Those people should be identified. They should go out of their way to try to identify and hold those people accountable with felony charges.
Well, we'll see if that happens. Sheriff Clarke, always good to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. And almost